Hello and welcome, everyone. Today's practice is the first in a series of 7 as we honor and explore the wisdom and lessons of the 7 major chakras. And for those of you who are not familiar with the concept of chakra, it's a Sanskrit word that means wheel or bridge. The ancient yogis believed that we have these energy centers throughout the body, with the 7 main ones lined up along the axis of the spinal column. Our yoga practice is one way to intentionally work toward opening these areas so that energy can move freely up and down the energy channels, helping to remove dis-ease in our bodies and move us towards balance and well-being. Now, Deborah will introduce you to the first, or what's referred to as the root chakra.
So before we talk specifically about the root chakra, it's important to know that each chakra has different characteristics. So they all have a lesson, a color, an element, a seed sound, the governance of different parts of the body, and a demon or a block. So specifically in terms of the root chakra, our first lesson is about our right to be here and to have. And it's where we learn the lessons of whether or not we believe the world is safe, that we can trust, and whether or not there's abundance in the world. They say that that lesson is built already while we're in utero through about the first 18 months of life. The color of the first chakra is red. Its element is the earth. It governs your immune system, your bones, and things like your weight. The seed sound of the root chakra is Lam, L-A-M, or if you remember it more easily with an English word, you can use the O like road. The demon, so the block of the first chakra is fear, right? So we either are in this place of trust and safety and abundance, or we're fearful. We're in a lack mentality is the other way that people talk about it. And of course, we're going to feel fearful at some times. That's totally normal. But it's important to know that we then have the ability to shift from that place of fear and come back to that place of safety, calm, peace, harmony, and so on. So the root chakra, one of the nice ways to also think about the root chakra is the idea of a tree, right? So when we're well rooted, when a tree has deep roots, it's stable, right? It's able to grow up tall and it's able to grow broad. And so we have expressions when we don't feel rooted, right? We feel weak in the knees, or we feel shaky, or like the rug's been pulled out from under us. So we want to move to the opposite. We want to come to that place of feeling strong and tall and rooted. Even when the wind blows, a well-rooted tree is going to be stable, right? We might shake a little, but we're not going to fall over. So today's practice, we're going to focus on that. So when you think about that concept of the tree, what can you do every day that helps yourself feel more strong, more rooted, more grounded, more calm, whatever words resonate for you? So we invite you to see every moment of fear in your life as an opportunity to practice being intentional, to practice coming back to a place of trust, safety, and abundance. So we're going to draw on those kind of elements as we move you through a movement practice today. And then we're going to end with a meditation as well that's focusing on this idea of being rooted and strong.
So you can really find any seat that's comfortable. I'm sitting cross-legged, but if you have blocks or props, you could sit with your knees forward with the block between your ankles if that's more comfortable. Much of this can be done in a chair, and then you can modify as well. So just keep all that in mind. But wherever you are here in space, I want you to just start to feel your sit bones, those bony tuberosities that we sit upon. I want you to start to feel them down on the place that you're sitting. So this idea that Deborah was talking about of the roots of a tree. So I just wanted to take a moment. If it's comfortable, you could close your eyes, or you could soften your gaze down upon your cheeks. And just start to allow yourself this moment to start to shift into this moment, to start to arrive into this practice, and to start to connect to your body to your deeper sense of intuition or inner guidance. And that's usually done by getting a little more quiet. So we're just taking this moment, this little process here of shifting into the now. And as you sense your body in space, see if you can allow your inner groins and your leg bones to just start to descend, to be heavy, to let go. And through that area of your pelvis and your sit bones and your legs starting to descend, there's usually kind of this natural uprising of our spine. This idea that, a tree is rooted strong down into the ground and then its trunk allows it to move upward. And then begin to shift your attention to your breath. Now, if you're coming to this moment with any pent up energy, or you're starting to notice any kind of tension or stress that you may have in this moment, I'm going to invite you for these next 2 to 3 rounds of breath to just exhale through your mouth. So you might take a sweet breath in through the nose, fill up. If it feels right, you might just exhale through the mouth. You could do it like I did it. You could flutter your lips. You could sigh and make sounds. So whatever works for you, take a couple more rounds. When it feels right, just see if you can allow your breath to now move in and out through your nose with your lips softly sealed, your jaw joint unhinged. And you can begin to cultivate the breath work of Ujjayi pranayama, or victorious breathing, breath with subtle sound at the back of the throat on both the inhale and the exhale. This breath is such a beautiful breath work to utilize through our yoga practice, and really any time that we're feeling that we need or want to downregulate our nervous system, shift into more of the relaxation response, because it starts to get the diaphragm to be really working with us, being on board. So if you don't know Ujjayi breath, don't worry about it. Just send your breath down into the lower circumference of your rib cage and your belly, and see if you can allow those areas to expand and soften. See if you can get a little bit of movement into that area, and then you'll know that your diaphragm's more on board as well. Floating your hands to your heart, you can either bring your palms together in front of your heart, which is called Anjali Mudra, or the mudra of compassion, or seal of compassion. Or you could rest your hands directly over your heart, or maybe even one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly. So any of those will work. Take a moment here to perhaps bow your head inward and set a conscious intention for your practice today. Your intention is such a lovely way to kind of set in motion that which you can place your attention upon when needed, just getting really clear. This may be just a simple word or phrase that resonates for you. Maybe something you want to manifest or you're calling in to your life at this point. And once you have that for yourself, gently lift your head, release your arms, and open your eyes to a soft gaze. And if you're sitting cross-legged, we've been sitting here for a moment this way. So I just want you to note which leg is in front, crossed in front. Maybe stretch your legs out, give them a little wiggle waggle, a little shake, just to get the blood flowing back down into the legs. And then we're going to switch the crossing of the legs if you're seated cross-legged. Good. All right. So, utilizing your conscious breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, if you can, reach your fingertips toward the floor beside you. So, as we move here on this next thing, we're going to think about that tree metaphor. So, we're rooting down through the pelvis, staying anchored. On your next inhale, you're going to sweep your right arm across the front of your body over towards your left. And then as you exhale, you're going to circle it all the way up and over back to where you started. And then you're going to move on your breath. We're going to alternate. Left fingertips on the inhale, sweep across and over toward the right. And then exhale, reaching up and over. Now you're going to, like I said, you're going to move on your breath. And so as you do this, whatever, rhythm of breath you have is going to kind of dictate the rhythm of your movement. And what I invite you to feel into, to sense into here, is a sense of rootedness kind of in your pelvis and your legs, but a sense of freedom in the torso and upper body. So if you think about certain trees, like a willow tree, for example, it's rooted strong, it has its trunk, but the top part is like blows in the wind and kind of sways and bends, right? So we don't want to be rigid, in our bodies or in our practice or even in our thinking. So this is just a beautiful way to kind of think about those things. Really finding what feels good. Take one more full cycle where your right arm's reaching across and then up and over. And then the final kind of movement here is the left. Beautiful. Then we're going to take a moment, however you're seated, see if you can just let your legs reach out just for a moment, kind of into a V shape. And it doesn't have to be like the widest. You can just find a place of comfort. You might take your fingertips or hands behind you if you feel like you need that support to lift your spine. If you feel like you can be there and place your hands in front, that's fine. And you'll see that I'm kind of bending and straightening my legs, or you can do that as well. Try to have your toes pointing straight up toward the sky so that your inner thighs start to roll down a little bit. You might even kind of sway a little bit from side to side or forward to neutral, just feeling into maybe some stretch in the inner thigh, inner groin. And we're breathing. And any maybe final moment here, if it feels good to just kind of hinge forward a little bit for a second. I still have my knees kind of bent because I'm not warmed up yet. So feel free to have your knees slightly bent, but it might feel good just to hinge for a second forward. Just see what feels good in your body. And then we're going to gently rise up. And you can help your legs come back by using your hands under the thighs or knees. And we're going to shift to hands and knees for just a second here to set up for an extended child's pose. So if you have cranky knees like I do, you might take a thin folded blanket or towel onto your mat. It's up to you just to set your knees on. And then if you have a block or blocks, you might take one of those and just have it handy. I'll just show you the option for that if you do. But we're going to bring the big toes together and the knees just wide enough for your torso to fall through. And then just start to elongate your spine forward, hinging from your hips, reaching your arms forward in space, finding length and spaciousness here as you start to rest your forehead down upon the mat. Taking a few breaths here. And you can certainly make this more active by keeping your arms straight and your elbows lifted off the ground if that feels nice, really just inching the fingertips forward. You could also make it more passive and restful by just bending your elbows and letting the arms fall wherever they might. And if you want to go a little bit deeper into
kind of a upper back or kind of shoulder opener, if you will. Um, you can either bring your palms together like prayer position, bringing your arms as straight as possible initially, and then bending at the elbows, picking up the hands and taking the hands any amount behind your head. And then there'll be a moment of kind of needing to inch the elbows forward in space. And then you can rest your forehead back down. And if that's feeling really good and you want to go deeper than that, that's where you would utilize that block if you have one. And you could place the block between your palms at any width. And then that would go behind your head any amount. So it's just a way to kind of make that a little more intense. So we're breathing here, breathing into the back of the heart on the inhale, creating some space in the back body. And on the exhale, melting the front of the body, allowing it to let go. Take a couple more breaths here. See if you can sense the forehead, the heaviness of the forehead or the weight of your head being held by the earth, the front of your shins, the tops of your feet, anchoring to the earth. And really this sense that the earth is rising up to meet you. So in this moment of respite, that we can just be held. If your hands or you're holding a block, if that's happening right now or behind your head, go ahead and release your arms forward in space. You can set the block down if you have that. You're going to separate your hands to shoulder width or wider. And then walk your hands back towards your outer knees. Loop your shoulders onto your back. And on an exhale, softly rise with a flat back. You're going to climb the hands forward and parallel the knees and feet to hip width distance. Hip width is the inner hip bones, by the way. And you can spread your fingers right on your mat, allowing the front crease of your wrist to be parallel to the front edge of the mat. And then from here, curl your toes under. Curl them as far under as you can. Get a little toe foot stretch there. And on an inhale, draw your chest forward, elongating your spine. As you exhale, round through your upper mid back, let your head drop. And then maybe push your hips or tip your hips back towards your heels, rocking any amount back to place some weight onto your feet that feels good. And then as you inhale, you're going to rock forward, elongating your spine, pulling the chest forward, broadening the collarbones. Exhale, rounding through the upper mid back, dropping the head and pushing the hips back toward the heels, any amount, just keeping the arms softly straight. Moving on the rhythm of your breath. Inhale, rocking forward. Exhale, rounding, rocking back any amount. 2 more here. The next time you rock forward, we're going to rise on the exhale to downward facing dog. So lifting your hips up and back. Feel free as you come into this first down dog to bend your knees a lot so that you can extend your spine a little longer. And then you might even start to pedal your legs where one knee bends, where the opposite heel draws down, and then you softly switch. Trying to keep the weight moving up and back into the pelvis, into the hips. Breathing steadily. Good. And then from here, we're going to bend the knees, look forward, rock your shoulders over your wrists as your knees lower down to the ground with control. Okay. So we are going to slide onto our belly. If for some reason lying on your belly, like the pressure, it doesn't feel good, maybe you're on follicle stimulating drugs or you're moving toward the second trimester of your pregnancy, you could do a couple of things here. One is you could take a blanket or towel fold and you could basically just put, if you're lying down, it would go right across the bottom part of your pelvis, kind of top of your thighs, so that your belly is free. So I'll just kind of show you what that is. And this would be more for like, maybe like if you're on follicle stimulating drugs, see my stomach's not even touching the ground here, or barely. So this will take pressure off. So just know that that's an option. And, if you're further along in your pregnancy and you have a bolster, then you would maybe do the same thing with a bolster. And then you might have to have like a second bolster or pillow or blocks to kind of hold your head here. So just know that that's an option, okay? So start to get yourself down onto the belly here, however is comfortable for you. And you can make a pillow for your head with your hands or wrists or forearms. You could turn your head to one side or just place your forehead straight down onto the ground. I just want you to find a moment that feels restful and held here. And as you breathe consciously, start to allow your breath to move down toward your belly. And for those of you whose bellies are touching the ground, you're going to start to feel your belly press softly against the floor. And it's also in that you might feel an expansion in the lower part of your back. So it's kind of this nice stretching of the low back. So that's on the inhale. And as you exhale, just feel your body kind of melt toward the ground. A couple breaths like that. And I invite you to also sense into your legs on the ground, the fronts of your legs, the tops of your feet. Just start to sense that connection to the earth as well. Allow your toes to point straight back behind you. And then we're going to set up with our arms in cactus arms. So your arms are going to bend at a 90-degree angle where your palms are flat to the ground. So your arms will probably go right off your mat if you're on a mat. So they'll go wide. And your head's going to turn to one side. And then I want you to sense into the connection of your inner forearms and palms pressing into the ground. And also start to anchor the front of your pubic bone or pelvis toward your blanket or the earth that you're lying upon. And on an inhale, we're going to lift our chest, lift the head, and turn the head to center. And to energetically drag your arms back. They're not going to actually move. Imagine they're glued to the ground. And then on the exhale, you're going to lower your torso down as you turn your head the other way. And then feeling the connection of your pubic bone to the ground. Inhale, lift your head, lift your heart, shrug your shoulders onto your back. And exhale, lower down as you turn your head the other way. And you'll move on the rhythm of your breath. The legs and the pelvis anchor down to help lift you up, to also protect your low back as you rise up, turning your head to center. And then exhale, turning the head and lowering. I want you to do a couple more rounds, 2 or 3 more rounds here. You don't have to lift high. Think about getting long, taking up space as you rise. Taking maybe a final round or 2. And I would love for you to end
where your head is turned the opposite of where you started, which might be the tighter side of your neck. One side of our necks are usually tighter than the other. And once you get there, just take a moment, maybe a breath or two, just to allow that earlobe to just rest down on the ground fully. So you're just letting go through the weight of your head, just letting your head be held. And then from here, please turn your forehead to the ground. Bring your hands right up under your shoulders like you're going to do a push-up, kind of thumbs in line with the breasts, sides of the breasts. And then you're going to loop your shoulders onto your back. Lift your shoulders away from the ground, away from your ears. Curl your toes under. And on an exhale, with your shoulders integrated, gently press yourself up to hands and knees. Just find that tabletop positioning here. And we're going to curl the toes under again. This time, we're going to keep the spine neutral and long. Take a breath in. And as you exhale, you're going to rock back, hips towards heels, but we're not dropping the head. We're not rounding the spine. We're just kind of restabilizing the spine here. And inhale, rocking forward. Exhale, low belly lifts a little bit, sit bones spread. We're really maintaining neutral in our spine here. Last two, inhale, rocking forward. As you exhale, we're rocking back, engaging the low belly, engaging the triceps, keeping the chest open. Last one, inhale. And exhale. And then inhale, rocking forward. On your next exhale, lift your hips up and back, downward facing dog. So just checking in with your body here. If you're still feeling tight in your legs, you might kind of pedal those legs a little bit or shift your hips. Any movements are a-okay here. Just do what feels good. If there's any pent up energy, feel free to exhale through your mouth at any time. Taking a final breath or two right here. And then from here, please walk your feet to the width of your mat, the inner edges of your mat, 10 toes pointing straight ahead. And then carefully walk your hands back to meet your feet, coming to a wide-legged standing forward fold. You can always have your knees soft, or you can even bend them pretty deeply initially just to feel your spine really hinge down off your hips. Maybe a ragdoll effect to the spine, and your hands can rest anywhere that they can easily touch. So that might be your hands kind of resting down toward the ground, either palms down or up. Maybe you're grabbing onto opposite elbows with each hand, or wrapping your hands around your legs in some way. Really anything goes. If you need extra support, you could always take a block or blocks under your hands so that you're kind of just resting down toward those blocks. So here, clearly our foundation is our feet, and I just want you to really feel the rooting sensation through the four corners of each foot. But that softness and that surrender through the upper body, particularly the weight of your head. Take a final breath here. From here, please bend your knees. Climb your forearms to your thighs for jockey pose. So your forearms or elbows will touch your thighs, kind of maybe right above your knees, something like that. Lift your chest, broaden your collarbones, spread your sit bones behind you, and lift your sit bones a little bit so that your weight shifts back into your heels, turning on your hamstrings. And then keeping that neutral spine, slide your hands to the top of your thighs, loop your shoulders onto your back. And on an exhale, push your feet into the ground and your hands into your legs to rise slowly up with a flat back. Okay, just take a moment, let that wash over you. All right, so if you're on a mat, you might turn the long ways on your mat as I am. It just might make it easier. And we're going to take a generous width between the feet here. In this particular stance, we're setting up, we're going to do what's called grounding breath. And the setup is very similar to goddess pose. So in goddess pose, the toes are turned slightly out, heels slightly in. You don't have to go super turn out like ballet because we're not in ballet. But what I want you to do is I want you to just measure for a moment, just to make sure that we're keeping our knees safe. You're going to start to bend your knees a little bit. You don't have to go like the deepest place, but go to a place of comfort for you. And I just want to show you that I'm having to inch my feet a little wider. So you don't want your knees to go past your ankles when you bend, however much you're bending. You want them to just be stacked. So I'll show you kind of what the tendency is. If you can see, my knees are past my ankles here. So that just puts pressure on the knees. So you don't have to bend deep, but make sure you have a nice width through the feet. All right. So take a moment, straighten your legs for a second, and sense down into the 8 wheels of your feet. You might even lift all 10 toes for just a moment so that you can feel the articulation of the 4 points of each foot, or what I call the 8 wheels of the feet. And then let the toes spread and relax down. See if you can still maintain that articulation sensation of those wheels, and then softly bend. The spine is upright. And from here, we're going to bring the hands to the heart. Rub the hands together, just creating some heat and energy through the hands. We're still breathing consciously. And then I want you to open your hands with your fingers facing one another and your palms up, right below your belly. You might even feel a little tingling in your hands from that rubbing energetically. And imagine that you're holding a beautiful ball of light or energy, okay? As we inhale, you're going to push down slowly into your feet, start to straighten your legs. And as you do, your hands are going to rise up towards your heart. And as you exhale, you're going to flip your hands down and start to push that energy in your hands down as you bend into your knees. And we're breathing. So again, your breath is going to dictate the rhythm of your movement here. When you're ready, you'll inhale, start to straighten your legs slowly as the hands start to rise up toward the heart. And then exhale, flip the hands down and ground down. You're pushing that energy down toward the earth. And then moving on your own. This is such a simple and beautiful breathing, kind of combination of breathing and movement that it's just so lovely for finding more of a sense of grounding, not only physically, but mentally as well. So remember, as we breathe consciously, particularly diaphragmatically, that really turns on our relaxation response, our parasympathetic nervous system. And it gives us something to pay attention to, which helps us to shift to the present moment. Take a final cycle here. The next time you bend your knees and you ground down, stay bent for a moment, breathe, And bring your hands to your belly with your thumbs at your navel and your index fingers touching. And let your hands rest right over those ovaries and reproductive system, your second chakra here. Hands are on. So as we root down into the feet, we're really activating first chakra as we're working our legs in this way, drawing that energy right up to second chakra. Take a final breath. And then gently release your arms, straighten your legs, and start to heel toe or step your feet toward one another. Good. You know what? I think what would feel good here for just a second is let your feet be about hip width or a little wider, and just soften your knees a lot and just start to circle your hips just for a second, just to get any tension kind of out of those hips. Maybe a couple of times in one direction and then go the other way. All right. So from here, we're going to do one more standing pose, which is perfect for our theme today. We're going to do tree pose, Vriksasana. So with any balancing pose, it's super important to keep breathing consciously, because sometimes we kind of shallow our breath or hold our breath because we're concentrating. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And the other thing is to keep your eyes softly fixed on one place, your gaze, and what we call in yoga, the dristi. So you're going to just keep your eyes softly fixed. And as we're here, we're going to lift the right heel, the left heel, your left. Your left heel is going to lift off the ground. So you're shifting your weight into your right leg. As you do this, notice if your right hip gets sassy or goes to the side. See if you can hug that hip into the midline so you stay strong in that hip. We're breathing. Then you're going to externally rotate your left leg, and you can keep your left toes on the ground and slide the foot right up against the inner ankle of the right foot. Now, feel free to touch a wall or a chair or something if you need to, because you might need to do that today. I might need to do that today. So we're breathing. Some of you may find that you're able to slide your left foot up the inner shin. Some of you may find that you can pick up the foot, grab hold to the ankle, and place that foot on the inner thigh. Okay, so just see where you're at today. And wherever your foot is resting, I want you to push your foot into your leg and your leg into your foot equally. And you might, if you're able, to bring your hands to prayer. And then you can also push your hands into one another. And keep hugging your right hip into the midline. And breathing. You might grow your tree at some point. You might take your arms out or up and down, like whatever feels good. And also have humor if you're kind of like wobbly or it's hard to stay in it today. Oh, that's okay. This is the way it goes. Where can you soften? Where do you need to stay strong and rooted? And when you're ready to come out of it, you're going to start to float your hands down if they're up, maybe back to prayer. Turn your left knee forward and then gently bring that foot down. Now that standing leg just got worked, didn't it? So you might want to roll out that ankle. You might want to do a little kind of counter stretch. I like to flip the top of my foot down behind me, onto the top of the foot, I should say. And this is a balance pose in itself, so you might have to hold on to something, but just see what feels good, letting go of that first side. And coming back to center, take a moment to just sense being in a place of neutrality, in a place of centeredness. So feeling into the 8 wheels of your feet, finding your breath. And then when you're ready, you're going to shift your weight into your left leg.
lifting your right heel. And you may notice pretty quickly that one side's different than the other, and that's usually true to some degree. You're going to externally rotate your right leg and maybe slide that heel up against the inner left ankle. You might stay here. You might slide the foot further up the leg, or you might take it all the way up. And usually we have to kind of grab hold and place it. And then just feel the connection of the foot and the leg together, really equally pressing the breath steady. And this sense of rooting down to rise up. And it's okay for there to be a lot of movement. There's a lot of movement for me today. You know, our balance changes from day to day and side to side. There can be a lot of factors of why we feel super steady some days and not so much others. It could be the light in the room or the lack of light. It could be sleep or lack of sleep, all those things. When you feel complete on this side, you're just going to consciously bring yourself out of the pose as best you can. Whew. And then maybe roll out that standing ankle or counter stretch in any way that feels good. Good. All right. So I am going to have us come lie down. And as we do, if you have your fertility balls, you could have those handy. If you don't have fertility balls, you could do this next thing with either, we're going to show you these options, with either a block or a blanket or towel fold that kind of mimics a block or some kind of lift. Okay, so any of those things will work. So I'm going to first have you come lie down onto your back. And once you're there, take a moment to either hug your knees in towards your chest. You might keep the knees together or wide if you need space for the belly, or you might take a full body stretch, or you might do a little bit of both. Good. And then from here, I'm going to have you bring your feet to the ground and bring your feet together. So knees bent, feet flat. And then from here, take your right leg and cross it all the way over your left leg. So right leg all the way over the left leg. Now, this next piece of this pose is where you would maybe utilize any of these props. And I just realized I need to turn around so you can see that. So with the right leg over the left leg, you're going to start to allow your legs to drop to your right, right leg's on top, and you're dropping the legs to the right. Most people, the legs are not going to touch the floor. So they're kind of hanging in space, which is not what we want. So you might take a block at any height to catch your legs, or if you have your fertility ball, like you're going almost down to the ground, or you can like kind of set it, you know, to catch your upper outer thigh, I should say, or a blanket fold or anything like that. So you can utilize these props so that you're held. And it's a little bit of an art form. Sometimes it's kind of trial and error to kind of figure out like the sweet spot. And then if it feels okay, you could take your left arm and reach it kind of outward or even upward, still resting arm on the ground, shoulder on ground, to get a deeper stretch on your left side.
Your head can be turned either direction or it can be neutral. Just taking a few breaths here. If your arm is up, go ahead and gently bring it back to neutral. Feel the bottom inner foot that's on the ground. Take a breath in, and on your exhale, push into that bottom foot. Gently draw your belly back as you bring your legs back to center. Uncrossing that right leg. And again, doing something that in your body feels neutralizing. So it might be a full body stretch, or it might be a hugging of the knees in, like a happy baby or passive happy baby. So any of that works. We're just kind of coming back to center. Good. And then we're going to do the other side. So as you're ready, bring your feet to the ground, bring your feet together. And then you're crossing your left leg all the way over your right leg. And you're going to tip your legs to your left. And again, one side might be very different than the other. So we just want to make sure that the body feels held enough that it's able to let go, essentially. So if it's not held enough and something feels too intense or something's hanging in space, it can actually make the muscles grip. And it can cue our nervous system that, oh, uh-oh, danger, you know. So just see if you can find that sweet spot for yourself. Maybe your right arm reaches up any amount that feels nice, that maybe gives you a deeper stretch. Taking a final breath or two right here. On your next conscious exhale, push into your bottom foot, let your belly draw back softly to come back to center. Of course, the right arm would need to neutralize. I forgot to say that, but then we come back to center, uncross the legs, and let's see how it feels to come into a happy baby pose. So you can draw your knees in, take them wide, take your hands to the back of your thighs to start. Flex your feet, stamp your feet toward the ceiling, and bend your knees towards your armpits or side body. You might just stay here. It's a nice way to let your shoulders relax. If you feel like you can go deeper or want to, you could slide your hands to the outer shins or outer ankles, or maybe even the outer edges of your feet. And this is only if you're able to keep your sacrum pushing down and your shoulders dropping back and down as well. Softening where you can. And we'll gently release. All right, so we're going to come into Shavasana. You can take your Shavasana any way that feels good in your body. A couple of suggestions is if you have a pillow or blocks or something and you want to stretch your legs out, that you might support the backs of your knees so that it releases your back. So that's just a nice soft way to do Shavasana. Another wonderful way to do Shavasana is to bring the soles of your feet together, knees apart. Make sure you have equal support on the outer thighs or outer knees. But whatever you choose, I'm going to invite you to place a blanket fold or towel fold or a little pillow right over the front of your pelvis, just to give a little bit of weight down so that it helps to ground you a little bit more.
As you allow your body to be held on Mother Earth, we're going to take a moment and do a little root meditation, and then we'll take some time for silence as well for traditional Shavasana. So I invite you to imagine either that you're tapping into the four corners of your feet as if your feet were pressing in the earth, or if you'd like to bend your knees a little bit more, depending on where you've chosen to take your Savasana, you can literally put the four corners of the feet on the earth, but otherwise use your mind's eye to imagine that you're connecting the four corners of your feet into the earth. And then from the center of each foot, see with your chalkboard in your mind's eye and feel the beautiful root or vine begin to come out of each foot and make its way through the different layers of Mother Earth. So working through sand and mud, working through the different layers of rock. Maybe along the way you uncover pools of water or flowers. Maybe you dig up some gemstones like diamonds or rubies or emeralds or other semi-precious stones like crystals. And just allow those roots and vines to grow and make their way down to the iron core of Mother Earth. So actively choosing to connect to Mother Earth, ground our energy, feel supported again so that we can root to rise is something you often hear yoga teachers talk about. We need that firm rooting in order again to grow tall, like we talked about with our tree. Maybe as you're rooting, you begin to notice a sensation of tingling or lightness or some other sensation under your feet. Just notice. Maybe today you notice nothing at all, and that's okay too. So just allow those roots to wrap around the iron core of Mother Earth if you haven't already. And then we're going to take a few minutes just to be quiet. So now I invite you to just let go of any pictures on the chalkboard, any thoughts. Just allow your mind to become as still as possible, your breath to become as quiet as possible. Whenever you're ready, maybe you choose to take some gentle movement, like wiggling your toes or wiggling fingers or both. You might choose to circle wrists or ankles. Maybe you deepen your breath. If you've used any kind of props on or under your body, you might choose to gently slide them out of the way rather, before you gently roll to one side. Left side if you can, to tap into the feminine energy, but otherwise just roll to one side and pause. And then whenever you're ready, gently pressing yourself up to a comfortable seated position, bringing the hands to the heart chakra in the center, or you might choose to place one hand on top of the other, one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. Drawing your chin in towards your heart, your inner teacher. Taking a moment to close your practice with some words of gratitude. You might set an intention for today or the week, perhaps drawing on the root chakra with a mantra like, I am in perfect health, my immune system is strong and healthy, or I am calm, secure, trusting, whatever word or words make sense for you. And when you're ready, gently rolling your head up one vertebra at a time, blinking eyes open if they're still closed. And we close our practice by saying Namaste. The divine or light mother in me sees and acknowledges that in you. Namaste.